Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to this very first Project 5 Wears video, which I'm going to be doing with the McGrath Sublime palette. I am going to refer you to my introductory video about the Project 5 Wears up in the cards here, because I don't want to introduce the project every time I do a video with it. I'm starting with the Sublime palette because I just think it makes so much cosmic sense for me to start with this palette. It was my first McGrath palette. I am absolutely in love with it. It was my #1 palette of 2018. I am currently penning this palette together with a bunch of other lovely people. I'm going to link my introduction to the project pen for this particular palette also up in the cards if you're interested in it. And it has this beautiful green topper shade, which you can also see on my eyes today. So you know, the stars were aligned and I just had to start my Project 5 Wears video with this particular palette. Without further rambling, I'm just going to leave you with the 5 looks that I created this palette, and I hope that you're going to get some inspiration out of this video. For today's look, I basically wanted to test the green eyeshadow as a transition, well, not a transition shade, but I just wanted to see whether I can put it in my crease and get away with it. And once again, I'm so impressed with the formula of McGrath, because that even shades like this, so this green shimmer shade, can work beautifully if you put them through your crease. So that is a little bit what I did today. I started with the matte shade just because I wanted to lay a matte shade as a transition for the green shade, and then I applied the green shade over top of that. I blended it out in my crease without any glitter glue or anything of the sort. I just used a fluffy sort of brush like this one. I just went into the shade and then I blended it into my crease, and then I went in with a glitter glue, and what I did is I laid the green shade towards the outer part of my lid just to intensify the green a little bit more, because without the base it's not as intense. And then I went for this beautiful bronze shade in the inner part of my lid, and of course I had to throw in VR Nectar, which is this topper shade here. I threw in VR Nectar kind of like in the center of my lid, and I think it worked out really beautifully. On the lower lash line I went for super simple. I just went for this green shade and I applied it over top of a base, which is why it looks a little bit more intensely green. I very often choose for these Kiko long lasting eyeshadow sticks. This one is in the shade 10 and it's a very pretty green shade, and I use it as a base for the green topper shade in the Sublime palette, just in case I want to make the green a little bit more poppy, because the green on its own has a very dark base, so you will see that it has a smoky base underneath the green, but when you put the green as a base, it will look much more intensely green, which is what I did on the lower lash line. And for my inner corner, there's nothing complicated. I just took this pink shade and I put this one, the Astral Orchid shade, over top of that. So this is a fairly simple look. For my lipstick, I chose the H&M Cream lipstick in the shade Redwood, which is a beautiful, like a nude terracotta warm type of color, which I think pairs really beautifully with this eye. I'm actually really pleased how this look turned out. I think it's really simple but really impactful, which is really something I always have with McGrath. So I'm pretty pleased with today's makeup. I'm not someone who recreates looks that they've done before, just because I feel like there's so much more potential to get out of color combinations that I always think it's a waste of my time to repeat something I've done before. But that being said, I've done this look once before and I enjoyed it so much that I thought I should definitely include it in my Project 5 Wears. So that's what I did today. I recreated a look that you might have potentially already seen on Instagram. But let me tell you a little bit what I did. So for this look, I wanted to focus a little bit more on using a variety of these shades, and then of course combining them with the topper shades, because it's impossible for me to go into this palette and just put one of these shades and not put any of the topper shades. That's just never going to happen. You're never going to see the day that the topper shades don't end up on my eyelids if I'm using this palette. What I did is I went in with the brown matte shade, because there's only one matte shade that you can kind of sort of use through your crease as a transition, and that is this shade. And what I did is I used that with a very light hand just through my crease as a base for the next shade. And before I went into the next shade, I actually applied one of my Kiko long lasting eyeshadow sticks as a base for it. That's something I like to do with these eyeshadows quite a bit, just because if you're going to use the same palette and the same colors very often, which I'm going to do with this throughout the course of my project pen year, you will at some point get bored with them. So one way to play around a little bit with the undertones of your eyeshadows is if you use cream eyeshadows. And this one has like very beautiful orange color with gold sparkles through it, and I used it as a base for the orange shade in the Sublime palette. So what I did is I applied the cream shade all over my lids, and then I went in with this shade over here and I blended that through my crease and I packed it onto the lid. I applied a very tiny bit of this dark brown again in my outer corners, so I applied a little bit of that with a more dense brush so that the color is packed a little bit more densely in my outer V. And then I applied this shade here, the VR Nectar shade, in the center of my lid with Fix Plus. I did want to keep VR Nectar more towards the center and not all the way on the lid because I wanted a little bit of the orange to still poke through in the inner part of my lid. Actually had to stop filming, it's a little bit later now, but I just wanted to finish telling you what I did for this look. I think the last thing I told you was that I used VR Nectar to highlight the center of my lids. In my inner corner I used this pinkish champagne shade, and then I used a little bit of Astral Orchid over top of that, also with Fix Plus. The most interesting thing outside of the Sublime palette for this look is, I think, the eyeliner, because instead of black I chose for my 65 gel liner from Inglot, which is a beautiful burgundy oxblood type of red. It is an absolutely gorgeous color. If you're looking for this type of color for eyeliner, I definitely recommend this one from Inglot. And what I did for my lower lash line is I once again used one of those Kiko eyeshadow sticks. So the one that I used for my lower lash line is in the number 33. This is a very interesting color. It is like a very smoky grayish sort of purple, and I do like to use this shade to either darken lighter shades or just change the undertone of a certain type of shade, and this is exactly what I used it for today. I put it in my waterline and just smudged it lightly on my lower lash line, and then I applied this shade here, the purpley aubergine shade, because I feel like when I use this cream shadow as a base, it kind of gives a more smoky base, and it intensifies this shade and makes it a little bit more like a aubergine, plummy sort of color. Basically, that's what I did for this look. It's not super complicated, but I do feel like the Inglot gel liner just amps it up a notch. Honestly, you guys, not to blow my own horn, but I really like how this look turned out, and mostly I'm super proud of myself because I used my two least favorite shades in this palette to create this look, and I feel like it turned out so nicely that I might actually start using them more often. But let me start from the beginning. So I started off the look as usual with this matte brown shade, just because I always like to have something in my transition. That's something I haven't really talked about a lot before, and probably a lot of you are going to be really surprised to hear that, but I actually really dislike my crease area. I feel like it's too big and it's a weird shape, and I never really know how to pull out my eyeshadow, especially around the corner. So I've been trying this a lot lately to drag it a little bit out to give it a more of a cat eye shape, and sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't, and sometimes I can't see it translated on camera, which really frustrates me. So I'm really hoping that you are able to see that today I feel like it turned out pretty well, because if I close my eye I can really feel like it's a little bit elongated. Anyway, besides the point, let me go back to what I did for this look. So I started off with this shade and I just used a very fluffy brush to put it through my crease. And afterwards I did apply a bit more of this shade like in the outer portion of my eye, but then I figured, you know what, let's just go super sultry and super smoky and let's apply the actual black shade. And I went into the black shade and I kind of applied it just in the outer part of the eye, and I tried to pull the eye shape a little bit more like in a cat shape. And I did use a very small pencil brush for that, just to be a little bit more precise with the placement of the black eyeshadow. And what I also did is I dragged it a little bit towards the base of my lashes. So instead of putting a winged liner, I just kind of dragged it halfway across my lash line, and then I sort of blended it out together with the brown shade. As a base for two of the topper shades that I used on my lid, I actually went into one of my Kiko long-lasting eyeshadow sticks. This one is in the number 16 and it is a sort of dark shimmery purple shade. It looks like this. If you guys have been around my channel for just a little bit, you know that I've been completely obsessed with these Kiko eyeshadow sticks, and I love using them as a base for a lot of the eyeshadows in my Pat McGrath palettes, especially the topper shades. So I didn't apply any glitter glue, I just made use of like the tackiness of the sticky eyeshadow, and then I applied this shade here, the Astral Orchid shade, which I don't like. I've spoken about this so many times. I like the concept of this shade and I like the idea behind it, but the execution and the texture of this eyeshadow really bothers me. There's something very dry about it, and I never really want to dig into this shade because I just always feel like it doesn't translate on the eye the way I wanted it to. But I figured, you know what, when I swatched it on my hand together with the purple, it kind of looked really pretty, so let's just try it that way. So I did spritz my brush with a little bit of Fix Plus, and then I applied the Astral Orchid shade towards the inner part of my eye, and then I applied, of course, VR Nectar, because can I go into the Sublime and not use VR Nectar? Absolutely fucking not. So I applied VR Nectar towards the center of my lid, and I really like how it turned out over top of the purple. In my inner corner I did use this super basic shade, which I don't know the name of, but it's a super basic satin pinky champagne sort of color, nothing too special about it, and I did use a little bit of this shade over top of it as well. Then on my lower lash line I kind of dragged the black eyeshadow a little bit, not even halfway through, like just the first third of the outer part of my outer corner, and then I applied the brown shade, so this one more towards the middle. And on the very inner portion of my lower lash line I did use this coppery shade over here, again spritzed with Fix Plus, and I really like how this look turned out. Oh, in my waterline I have just a basic brown pencil, and over top of that I used this sort of like light browny shade just because I didn't want my waterline to be black. And that is pretty much all for this look. I really like how it turned out, and I especially like how sultry it turned out because of the black shade. So I might be reaching for that black shade a little bit more often than I expected, now that I came to appreciate how much depth it gives to your looks. So I will try to incorporate it in my looks a little bit more often. On my lips I'm wearing one of my nude type of lipstick staples, and this is Modesty by MAC. As far as like concealer nude lips are concerned, this is as concealed and nude as I would ever go, because anything else would look absolutely dreadful on me. But I really like how this contrasts with the super pale lips. Oh, I just really like how this look turned out. I hope you enjoyed too. So that is one of my absolute favorite nude lipstick. It has a cream, very comfortable formula. It doesn't make that like weird white line rim in your lips when your lips dry a little bit out. Lovely nude lipstick. If I ever run out of it, I'm definitely going to repurchase. This is definitely one of my most favorite looks that I've done with this palette, like the more out of the box, not super obvious looks, and I am super pleased with how it turned out. So I was super inspired by using the eyeshadow in my previous look, or at least one of the previous looks that you're going to see in this video, where I basically just used the black eyeshadow to intensify my outer corners. And I know it's not news to anyone that black eyeshadow works that way, but I have never ever enjoyed using black eyeshadow in my life, because I either have never come across really good blacks, or I just really never accepted myself with a black eyeshadow, because obviously black eyeshadow makes your eye looks much more dramatic and much more impactful. But for some reason that eye look that I created with this palette turned out so beautiful and sultry, but like not overly dramatic at the same time, that I thought I will just expand on my newfound love for black eyeshadow and just use it also for today's look. Today's look I think turned out also a bit more on like the neutral side of things, but also guys, if you look at the palette, except for the green pop of color here, maybe this bronze eyeshadow, it's not like you can create much more than a variety of neutral looks with a kick to them if you don't use these two eyeshadows. I did use the green eyeshadow, but I'll tell you later how I used it so that you don't really see much of the green tones of it. Once again, I started off with the brown eyeshadow here, and I applied it to my crease. I applied the black eyeshadow to deepen my outer corners. I again opted for no eyeliner. I just smoked it out and like tried to pull out the shape of my eye a little bit in the outer corner. And then, again, something that I do quite on the regular basis these days, I whoops, especially with these palettes from McGrath, is that I use my Kiko eyeshadow long-lasting sticks as basis for these eyeshadows. So today I used the number 46. This is luckily one of their newer colors, so I think you can get this one, because unfortunately I was recently informed that a bunch of their super colorful like eyeshadows from this line in the older collection, because they recently released a bunch of new colors and they had previously a number of colors that were much more like colorful and vibrant, those are being discontinued. I did place an order with Kiko and I ordered 2 backups of the green one because I was sure that I'm going to regret it the rest of my days if I don't have that eyeshadow for at least like a foreseeable future. But I used this number 46. This color you can definitely get, like I said, because it is in their permanent line, and I think it is probably one of their most beautiful colors because it's a duochrome. It has like a taupey, almost olive toned base with very intense like violet pink sparkles and shimmer through it, and it looks absolutely beautiful on its own or used as a base for other eyeshadows. So I did apply this on my eyelids. So I did apply the Kiko eyeshadow as a base for this like sort of light brown shade. Over here is like a more satin sheen, not really a foiled metallic kind of eyeshadow, and because it's a bit more of like a satin sheen, I feel like it's a bit more, I don't want to say sheer, but it allows something like the shadow stick from Kiko to really shine through, because if I were to put something like this over top, for instance, I don't think you were ever going to see what was underneath it. However, because this eyeshadow has a bit more of like a smooth, not very like thick texture to it, it allows for these eyeshadow sticks to really poke through. So I really enjoyed the result because I feel like it picked up a little bit on those taupe colors, on like the taupe olive tone base, but then the pink shimmer was still poking through very well as well. I really love how these two textures layered together, and I really feel like this is something I'm going to do more often, especially with this eyeshadow here, because honestly it's not one of the eyeshadows that I would easily apply and just use on its own for like a one and done look, because it would definitely not look very, like it won't look flattering on me, is not really what I mean, but it won't look very impactful is what I want to say. So I found a way to use this eyeshadow that gives me more fun, and I actually really enjoyed using it today. Then I went into VR Nectar, of course, spritzed my brush with Fix Plus, and I applied it on my inner corners. And for my lower lash line, on the very outer edge, I just applied a bit more of the black eyeshadow, and then in my waterline and the rest of my lower lash line, I took another Kiko eyeshadow stick, and that is the one in number 16, which is a gorgeous mid-tone purple color. Looks like this. I think I may have used this in one of my previous looks and called it a dark purple. It's not a dark purple, it's more like a mid-tone purple. Anyway, so I used this eyeshadow as a base for the beautiful blitzed emerald green duochrome shade here, because the thing is that I personally feel like the smoky base of this shadow leans purple. It's not black, and it's definitely not like a brown. I really feel like it's a very deep purple, so I wanted to play up on the tones of that and add the green shimmer, but like very subtly over top. So that's what I did. I feel like you get a very nice balance between the purple and the green. The green doesn't overtake, and the purple Kiko eyeshadow stick really plays up on the smoky undertones of the green eyeshadow. On my lips I finished it off with my ColourPop, what are these called again? Lux Trans lipsticks? I think so. In the shade Still Crazy. It's considered to be a cream. Honestly, I would call this formula more of a comfort matte. I have 2 lipsticks from this line, and both of them wear very well, apply very well, and feel very comfortable on the lips. I cannot vouch that all of them are like that, but the ones that I have are absolutely gorgeous, and I would highly recommend checking out that formula. For my 5th and final look for this Project 5 Wears video with my Sublime palette, I went in for a full-on green smoky eye, because I figured it makes so little sense for me personally on my channel in a Project 5 Wears video with this particular palette to have the video done and realize that I never did anything with this shade taking center stage. Obviously you can see that this is the shade that this look is centered around, but I figured even though I did something similar for my first impressions video with this palette, I just couldn't imagine myself posting this video without having a full-on delicious vibrant green smoky eye. So that's what we went in for today. Let me tell you what I did. So the first thing I did is I went into a combination of this shade and this shade. So I kind of lightly went in with the matte shade first, and then I applied this satin shade over top of it, because I feel like somewhere through this video I did mention that these three shades here work beautifully as transition shades, so the three metallic shades, because they have very like mid-tone undertones to them, but I never really quite showed you how I did that, or at least I can't remember a lot of looks where I really did that. I think for the most part I went in with this shade straight in. But today I did go in for a combination of this shade and this shade because I wanted to have a somewhat lighter brown through my crease. And you can't really see much of it because, like I said, I used it as a transition and I did layer quite a bit over top of it. And then I went into the black shade. My newfound love for black shade means that I'm going to use it more often now. And I kind of used a little pencil brush like this and I dragged it along my lower lash line and then I extended it into my outer V. You can't really see much of it right now because it is covered by the green shade. But underneath the green shade I do actually have, like, just on the in the base of my lashes as well as the outer V, quite a bit of that black shade packed on. Then I applied a glitter glue onto my lid because I have used this shade previously dry and I didn't feel like I got the impact that I wanted, so I highly recommend either foiling your like spritzing your brush or applying glitter glue. But if you want to get the full-on green effect on your eyelids, you are going to have to resort to something like this, and definitely use your finger to apply the eyeshadow. So I applied this shade all over my lid, and then I used the same brush on which I had the black shade actually, and I applied it also in my outer corner over top of the black shade. And I used the fluffier brush on which I had these two shades to basically also dip a little bit into the green and put it also through my crease. So a lot of what you see going on my lid is basically the green shade, although underneath it there are other eyeshadows applied. Then in my inner corner I went in with the VR Nectar shade, so 5 out of 5, I used it in every single look. On my lower lash line I basically did the same that I did on my upper lash line. I applied a brown liner into my waterline and then I went in with the black shade in the very outer edge of my eye. I went in with the brown towards the inner part of my eye, and then I spritzed a small detail shader brush and I went in with the green shade and I basically covered everything with green shade. So essentially most of what you're seeing right now is the green eyeshadow over top of a bunch of other shades. But I did want to mention that I did layer it over top of other shades because I feel like it's important for, you know, certain parts of the look which have more depth to them to really have these shadows layered underneath them, even though you cannot really see them. I think I've rambled enough about this fairly simple smoky eye look. I did pair it with a very simple pinky nude lipstick. I'm wearing Anita from NARS. It is, like I said, a beautiful pinky nude lipstick. It looks like this. I really like the formula of NARS lipsticks and I think the packaging on the Audacious line is absolutely stunning and so classy, so chic. I really like it. With this look, basically, I conclude this Project 5 Wears video of the Sublime palette from Pat McGrath. And like I mentioned in my introductory video for the Project 5 Wears, I do want to throw in a couple of like review thoughts in these videos because I feel like at this point, after having used the palette so many times, I can give you quite a few relevant thoughts on it. First of all, let me tell you, after using every single shade in the palette so many times in so different ways, I can tell you there is not a single shade in here that I truly dislike, except for the Orchid shade, which I've mentioned before, that I don't like because it's very dry. I can make it work, but it's still not my favorite shade. That being said, I will still use it because I think it gives beautiful effect to certain types of looks. The rest of the shades are impeccable and they can be used in so many different ways. One of the things I learned from this palette and from Pat McGrath is layering. I had never really quite given thought to like different textures and how you can layer them over top of each other to get different outcomes, but this brand and this woman showed me that layering is one of the most fun things that you can do in makeup. You definitely saw throughout the course of this video that I went from I'm never going to use this shade much, it's probably going to lay around unused, to oh my god, how did I not realize that a black eyeshadow can be so much fun. So that's definitely something that I learned right here together with you during this Project 5 Wears video. I started loving black eyeshadow. I definitely think that I'm going to probably not hit pan on it. You know, I'm panning this eyeshadow palette. I'm never going to hit pan on the black shade just because you only need like the tiniest amount. But I do think that unlike before I started this Project 5 Wears video. I feel more confident now that I am going to make much more use out of this shade because I think it serves the purpose that I finally found for it, which was intended by Pat McGrath, but Dumbo that I am, and stubborn that I am, I just resisted the complete concept of this eyeshadow. So now that I have found out how to incorporate it in my looks, I think I'm going to have so much more fun with it. The rest of the shades I still adore. The topper shades, especially the green, the VR Nectar shade and the bronze shade, absolutely beautiful. I'm going to continue using this palette with so much appreciation and love. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it was helpful for you, inspirational, because that is really the whole point of these Project 5 Wears videos. Let me remind you once again that if there is a particular look that you really want to see a tutorial on, you can always leave your request in the comment section below and I will definitely consider it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!